Hello everyone, welcome back to Allcarnews, and today you join us here with the all-new 2025 Acura ADX, the brand's first foray into the premium luxury subcompact SUV segment, and it is a crowded segment at that point. This all-new ADX hopes to impress buyers with its legendary Acura reliability, sharp new looks, comfortable ride, and a standard list of features that hopes to impress buyers over a lot of European competition. And of course, we have this all new ADX here for our traditional 1 week review, where we're going to be able to take you guys on an in-depth tour and review of this vehicle, show you all of these cool features, what's there to like and maybe dislike about this Acura ADX, and whether you should consider buying this over the many other competitors. Hopefully I'll be able to answer that question today in this video. And nonetheless, let's go dive in. So how does the all-new Acura ADX stack up to its competition under the hood? Well, Acura has decided to give this all-new ADX a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that is a familiar engine throughout the Acura and Honda lineup. In this particular application, it's making 190 horsepower and around 175 pound-feet of torque. Not the most powerful version of this engine that does exist, but I would say it's not too bad. This is then paired to your only choice here is a continuously variable transmission. Now you can get the ADX in either front wheel drive or Acura's dynamic all-wheel drive, like the one we have right here, which means you'll be able to send up to 50% of that power to the rear wheels when needed for particular traction applications, and you get a cool little all-wheel drive kind of torque distribution graph on your digital cluster if you just do want to have that up there. Fuel economy wise, this ADX with this all-wheel drive system is going to see around 28 mpg combined, 30 mpg on the highway, and around 25 mpg on the city. The front-wheel drive model slightly increases those fuel efficiency numbers, though overall this isn't the most impressive fuel economy in this class. If you go down to the little bit tinier Lexus UX, that's going to be a hybrid only, so you're going to see really strong MPG numbers there, and all of the other European competitors generally will be getting a little bit better MPG, with the standouts being the BMW X1 and the Mercedes GLA. They seem to get really good MPG while also getting more power than this vehicle as well. So you do have a wide choice of vehicles to choose from in this segment, as like I mentioned. This one, I would say, is right in the mid-pack when it comes to terms with its powertrain. Acceleration on the highway and around town is generally quite fine. You get a lot of nice flat torque throughout the entire Rev brand. It's generally pretty smooth of an experience, even with this continuously variable transmission here. So you're not always going to be getting shifts. You do have paddle shifters to kind of make that happen yourself. And if you really are stepping on it, you will get some simulated shifts around here. But driving this car around, it doesn't necessarily feel slow, just not as quick as it can be for this particular segment. I would love to see a hybrid down the road, or a Type S version of this vehicle. I think would do super hot in this segment right now. Now on the visual front, I actually think the ADX is a really sharp looking vehicle. You can totally see that this is indeed an Acura, and it draws from the design from the larger MDX and RDX in a newer, smaller, and sportier looking shape. On the hood, we have that really signature, really strong, bold arches on this hood over here that we find on a lot of other Acura models, and we're going to see those signature Acura elements right up here with their diamond pentagon front grille. But I love how it's this really nice frameless design here with a very bold Acura logo right up front. And with this particular A-Spec package, we are getting a little bit more of a sportier flair. Coming down here, we're going to see a nice gloss black painted lower bumper area with these kind of aero pieces over here that are surrounding our LED fog lights, and we have a little bit more open cooling down there. Overall, I think this front end looks really great. And we haven't even gotten to the nice and bright, bold LED headlights over here with that signature kind of chicane Acura LED daytime running light signature there, combined with this optional urban gray pearl paint, which looks absolutely gorgeous here in the sunshine. Really nice metallic fleck. Overall, with the A-Spec package, I think this ADX looks really sharp. Stepping over to the side of the Acura ADX, we are getting these nice gloss black painted 19-inch wheels. We have wrapped around Continental tires on this particular one as well, and I think these wheels do a perfect job blending in with this Acura A-Spec package, and this urban gray paint is a really nice contrasting color here. Now, versus a Honda HR-V, if that's a real concern to you, this car has a totally unique sound insulation system on here. So they've really stuffed a lot more sound insulation into this vehicle to make it a lot more quieter than that vehicle and to make it in line with this premium subcompact SUV segment. Acura also has redone the steering so it's unique on this vehicle, and we have a fully independent suspension on this all-new ADX with a multi-link rear setup out back, which is pretty nice for that nice, sharp, dynamic handling aspects that you should expect out of an Acura product. We're also getting pretty good brakes in this vehicle. I really don't ever have to think about the brake pedal, which I think is a good thing in a car. Really good, strong bite, pretty progressive brake pedal as well. Really no complaints there whatsoever. These tires though, they are a little bit on the louder side on the highway. I have noticed, I do hear a little bit of road noise coming from underneath the vehicle and a little bit of reverberation of the cabin. But of course, there are different wheel options. If you don't like this particular one, you can choose in the Acura configurator. Now stepping around to the rear of the all-new Acura ADX, again, really sharp styling elements back here. I think this looks really cool in their overall design aspect. Again, this paint looks gorgeous in the sun. We're getting a really aggressive upper spoiler over here. I love the curvature to this, looks really nice. We have very sharp and dynamic Acura unique taillights right here, of course, full LED as well. And it almost looks like they shrunk down an MDX and an RDX, combined them together, and we got this all new ADX right here. We have a rear wiper, which is nice. Of course, this really unique kind of flat surface section over here where you're gonna find your Acura logo. Coming down to the lower area, we have our A-Spec badging, Acura badges, and again, that nice gloss black treatment is continued into the lower bumper section over here with more painted material over here. This is like this metallic kind of gray finish. I like how we don't find any plain unpainted black plastic on the vehicle. It definitely makes it look a lot more premium as well. We're also going to find two real exhaust tips on the ADX as well. Loads of parking sensors, and since we have the A-Spec Advance package, we do get the really nice 3D camera system on the vehicle as well. I also want to point out that yes, this is a turbocharged engine, but thankfully 91 is recommended. You can actually put 87 in this vehicle as well, so don't worry about that. Some other competitors, European competitors, may actually require you to actually have a 91 in your vehicle. And we already have loaded up our rear hatch area. I can actually open up this hatch area, I believe, by just kicking open the rear trunk. This should open this up, and you'll see we have a loaded trunk back here as well. The ADX has a decent amount of cargo space, not the biggest in class, but just right up there with the biggest in class, the BMW X1. And we have our chairs, we got some towels and stuff, and it fits all perfectly back here in our cargo space area. I like this little button here too, where you can just press this, walk away, and the trunk should actually just start closing automatically by itself. Pretty cool feature. Okay guys, let's go take a look at the rear seats now of the all new Acura ADX. We have our key fob here, we have engine start stop on here, lock, unlock, as well as a trunk hold release. Typical Acura key fob, nothing too crazy or special here, but I think this is a totally fine fob. And of course, we do have comfort keyless access and entry. Hopping over to the rear door of the ADX, as you can see, we are locked right now. And of course, I can just walk up right to the door and unlock it easily. We get power folding mirrors as well on this particular one. And you can configure this to lock or unlock just one door or all four doors through the infotainment system. Let's see how wide this rear door opens, because I always find this to be an interesting thing on newer vehicles for easy entry and exit. Pretty wide opening actually, so not a full 90-degree angle, but overall I think it's a really good space. On the door cards over here, nothing too crazy. As you can see, we have the red interior option on this particular ADX. We have a little bit of a cubby hole over here for a water bottle, actually pretty deep, which is nice. Some additional storage up here, our window controls, and part of our 15 speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system in this particular vehicle as well, so that's really nice. We do have metal door handles, which is really a cool touch there, and nothing really else, just some harder plastics over here and up on the upper section as well. We do have a tinted window in this particular interior, which is nice, and manual locks for our child door locks as well, which is a nice touch there. But let's go see what's going on in the rest of this rear seat. And the one thing you're going to notice back here is how much space we have. So let's close up our door here. Nice solid-ish thunk, a little bit on the hollow sound there. Let's have another go at this. Okay, so we do have a grab handle up here. It doesn't look like we have any interior lighting up here, though that you're going to be able to find in the center, and it is nice. And it is nice that this is LED lighting in here as well, which is a nice touch. And thankfully, we have this large panoramic glass roof to help open up the cabin. And one of the real nice things about the rear seats of this Acura ADX is that they're incredibly spacious. This is my driving position right now as a 6 foot tall person. And honestly, sitting behind myself, I have so much leg space up here. incredible amounts of knee room. Same thing with foot space as well. And the floor is actually pretty flat overall. There really isn't that much of a hump here, which is nice. And that means you could actually fit pretty much 3 people in here. So sitting in the center area over here, you can see the 2 outboard seats actually have a pretty nice, decent amount of space over there as well. So that's a nice thing to see. And we do get 2 USB-C ports back here and our own air vents, which is a nice touch. So we can kind of close and open those, but no temperature control over here, which I think is a fine touch. We don't have a storage on the back of the driver's seat, though we do have some storage on the back of the passenger seat here. It's a pretty wide storage opening as well, so that's a nice touch there. And looking at the seats themselves, they're just like the front seats. We have the blend of the leather and as well as this kind of micro suede material, and that carries over to the seats themselves, which is pretty nice. Folding down our center armrest over here, we're going to find 2 cup holders, which is a nice touch as well. So overall, really nice rear seats in the Acura ADX. One minor complaint, I wish these seats could be a little more scalloped so we have a little more thigh room, but like I mentioned, there's just so much just general space in here. I really don't think it's that big of an issue. But let's go see what's going on the front end of this interior. Okay guys, hopping on the front end now of the Acura ADX. This is where the business end really is, I think, on this interior. Popping open the door here, you can see you have a massive entry for your front driver and passenger. And on the front doors over here, we're getting a little bit of a nicer treatment than we're going to find on the rear doors. So we have really nice accented Bang & Olufsen speaker systems on the front doors, a lot more cushioning, a much longer armrest, all of our controls for our buttons, and the door itself is getting a much nicer design than out back. So we have softer touch plastics up here. We have this nice leather and Alcantara stitching on the doors, this really interesting kind of black plastic design theme, and we got an ambient light strip throughout the door panel up front here, which is also a nice touch. And I like that they added in these metal door pulls. It really does have a nice, more solid premium feel for this Acura ADX. We have seat memory on here. We're also getting a aluminum side sill plate with the A-Spec logo in here, which is a nice touch. And the driver's seat does get a little bit more adjustment than the front passenger seat does. So we do have lumbar adjustment and a lot more height controls over here, as well as just regular controls. So a lot more adjustment for the front driver than the front passenger via power. Let's hear that door thunk. Pretty solid, actually a little bit more solid than we have out back. And have a look at this gauge cluster startup, and let's take a tour of what's going on in this interior. So to power on our Acura ADX, we're going to find our start stop button right over here. Press that little button here and everything should come to life for us really quickly. And so just to keep in mind, we do have the A-Spec Advance package. So this is the top tier version of the Acura ADX. And that means we are unlocking 2 things that are locked with this top tier package. And that includes this heated steering wheel, as well as the 360 camera system, the 3D 360 camera system, which unfortunately is locked in this top tier packaging. Keep that in mind when you're shopping around in the ADX trims. But overall, this is a pretty nice interior. Specifically, this top tier advanced one is getting, again, those really nice full red leather seats over here. I just wish they were a little more comfortable and supportive. Over time, we just did a road trip in this vehicle. I was feeling a little bit fatigued, especially in this lower cushion area over here, as well as the lower back section over here. But visually, they are quite nice, and they feel pretty nice. Nice stitching over here, nice contrast with the Alcantara and stuff. And I have to say, the ventilation actually works really, really well. So does the heating. It gets nice and toasty. And there. I do like this steering wheel generally. It is a Honda steering wheel at the end of the day. It's very familiar. But we have the nice leather wrapping around it. We have a little A-Spec badge over here, like I mentioned, a heating button right there. And they actually added real metal paddle shifters on this vehicle, which actually feel very, very nice. They're nice and solid. So again, another little premium touch point in this Acura ADX interior. And the one thing that I will say about this entire cabin is that anyone can hop in and automatically drive this vehicle. And that's one thing that I cannot say about a lot of the competitors in this class. You have a very familiar traditional shifter in the vehicle, just park, reverse, neutral, drive, and there's a sport for the CVT transmission. Really easy to use, nicely trimmed, feels very solid, the shifter. Again, really easy, simple controls. On the steering wheel, we have a volume, forward, reverse track, and a little scroll wheel to control the left-hand side of this digital cluster here. Right-hand side, we have steering and lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, and another little scroll wheel right here for this side of the cluster. Really simple, easy to use, physical buttons, work really well, no touching haptic nonsense in here. Very easy to use, traditional style automatic headlights, turn stalk indicator, same thing with our wiper controls, all very traditional, easy to use, nothing crazy new and advanced that you really have to have a learning curve to get into. And that's what I like about this car. We just have normal, well working, functional window controls here, no pressing rear to activate the rear window controls like in some of these crazier new European vehicles. Easy to control stuff for our locks, as well as trunk release, traction controls right there. Very nice, easy to control vents for our climate system over here, and they're trimmed with this nice little metal accent around them. Same thing goes with the center area over here, pretty easy to use again. So that's one thing I really like about this interior. Everything's just really, you get in and you kind of know how to use everything already, which is a nice touch. No heads-up display on the ADX whatsoever. I think that would have been a nice thing to add in here. That really would have, I think, stepped up this cabin, especially for the advanced pack. But I like the trim on the dash. You know, this leather trim carries over up here. We have a little bit of a faux metal-esque plastic trim over here, which is nice, I guess. Kind of adds a nice detail accent here. And I do really like that we have these physical climate control knobs in this Acura ADX as well. And they are so nice to use as well. And watch what happens when I change the temperature up. You can kind of see they turn red, going down, colder, they turn blue. So I really like this little accent there. And I like just how easy it is to use. It's not buried in the infotainment system, just separated, nice physical climate knobs. And the buttons have a really nice solidity to them. They feel really nice and tactile as well. Really simple and easy to use stuff there. So again, I really like that. We have a wireless charger mat over here, 2 USB-C ports, and a 12-volt socket over here as well. Again, really good layout of this stuff. We have 2 cup holders. One's up here, one's back here. A little bit of a strange design, but we do have a little bit of an additional storage space here. Or if you have a big, like Stanley cup with a big handle, I guess that could kind of fit in this little piece over there. They're pretty deep cup holders as well. They seem to hold cups generally fine. Again, we have a shifter right here, pretty easy to use. Popping in reverse, we're going to see our backup camera, but we can also activate our cameras via our stalk over here. So you can just press this little button here and going to cycle through a whole bunch of different camera views. I have to say the camera views are very crystal clear, really nice definition on the cameras themselves. And over here in the center console piece, we're going to find a few other controls here. So we have our drive mode selector, automatic start stop deactivation right there, hill descent control, and electronic parking brake. We do have a few different drive modes here. So watch what happens when we kind of cycle through those in our digital cluster here. We're going to go from sports, normal, comfort, and snow, and we got a nice little animation in our 9-inch infotainment screen here with the ADX in it, so you can see comfort, normal, sport, and we have an individual mode. And if you hold down this button on the center console over here for individual, you can go to your individual settings. So here you can adjust your engine output, so from comfort normal to sport, your steering stiffness from comfort normal to sport, the fake engine sound that could be pumped into here as well, and you can configure your idle stops system, as well as what your gauge design would like to be in your individual settings. So you do get a lot of nice customization here in terms of your individual drive mode settings. And some of the vehicles in this class actually don't even have a drive mode selector at all anymore. Now we also got to talk about the stuff you can configure on this digital cluster here. So it's a pretty mildly configurable digital cluster, I would say. On the right hand side, you can kind of cycle through a few different menus here, from like safety support, tire pressure, maintenance, seat belts, all-wheel drive torque distribution as well. So that's kind of a cool little touch. And as well as your trip computer, it can also be found on the right hand side here. On the left hand side is really just going to be displaying information from your phone projection system like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, Bluetooth, and your radio stations as well. And you can kind of customize them mildly. There isn't too much you can kind of do in here. So it is mildly customizable, like I said, but not too much stuff over here. It's not like you're getting a full mapping system. This infotainment screen over here, as you can see, it's very familiar to its some other platform shared vehicles here. So that's not bad in terms of familiarity if you're coming out of an additional Acura or Honda product. But we don't have any sort of scroll wheel or touchpad. This is a fully touchscreen infotainment system. And since we have the top tier advanced package, this is only available in the advanced package. You're getting Google built in. So that means you're going to get the Google Assistant, we're going to get Google Maps, the Google Play Store, and there's even Amazon Alexa voice assistant on here as well. Really quick, responsive screen. I do actually really like that. The processing software on here is really, really quick and responsive. As you can see, the pinch to zoom is really, really nice. And I like how we have these physical home and back buttons right here. They're actual physical buttons. This makes navigating this infotainment system incredibly easy to use. We also have a physical volume knob right here and these physical buttons for forward and track selection right there. I also want to point out really quickly the cool settings we have here for our Bang & Olufsen audio system here. So if we go to sound volume, let's go to sound here. We have this really cool kind of tone system here, so we can kind of put it to different feelings almost of like warm or energetic or bright and relaxed, and it kind of adjusts the bass and treble accordingly, which is kind of cool. You can also adjust your 3D surround system as well. If I go back here, we can adjust those center speaker volumes and our roof speaker volume independently, so you can kind of play around with a lot of audio settings. And this system, I actually think, is a pretty good audio system. It's one of the most speakers I think you can get in this entire class, which is pretty cool. And it sounds generally quite good, I would say. So definitely test this out if you're an audiophile. This might be one of your top choices in terms of audio systems in this class of vehicle. Really nice stuff here in the Acura ADX. And now let's go take this thing on a drive and see how it handles and impresses on the road. And it has now been a full week with this all-new 2025 Acura ADX in the highest trim you can get. Over the course of this week, we have taken on a road trip. We have driven it plenty around town, on the highway, and really got to experience everything that the ADX does have to offer. And overall, I think it is a pretty fine SUV. I really don't have any blaring complaints with it whatsoever, honestly. It's pretty comfortable, it's pretty smooth. All the technology works as advertised, I would say, and everything's pretty nice. You have heated, ventilated seats, really good on just general safety systems, and overall a lot of standard equipment. And the one thing that Acura is pitching this ADX to be is a little bit more of a value-oriented option in this luxury subcompact SUV segment. Though I think in that aspect, the ADX falls just a little bit short of some of its other European competitors in some areas, though in some other areas I think it is still excelling, and could be a better buy for you depending on what you want, since there are so many competitors in this segment. So since we are driving, let's talk about our driving characteristics first. The ADX overall, I think it's a just totally fine SUV in its driving characteristics. Steering isn't anything crazy. It really doesn't stand out, I would say, in this class. You can adjust the stiffness, so I can pop it into my individual setting, which I have the steering set to the sport. So it does stiffen up a bit. The ADX does have a multi-link rear suspension, strut up front, and going around corners, it feels generally pretty planted and confident, I would say, in its handling characteristics, which is a nice thing, honestly. It doesn't feel like it's tipping over with body roll that so much, but you know, some of the more European competitors do feel a little bit more taut, maybe a little bit stiffer in the overall suspension tuning, but just overall a little bit more of a tighter chassis and driving experience, which could be something you might want more. This one has a little bit more of a softer, but still a little bit on the firmer side of the suspension. But overall, driving characteristics are fine. I just wouldn't call it the sportiest in this class whatsoever. If you really want to consider a runner-up from the non-luxury segment, the Mazda CX-30, very similar sized vehicle, does also really well with handling in this department. Now, acceleration in the car, I think, could be improved. This car does only have 190 horsepower. And Acura did fit this with a CVT, which, you know, is a fine economy car transmission. You know, it's aimed for fuel economy, but in the luxury segment, I'm not too sure if buyers are really going to want that. I don't really find a CVT inherently a sporty transmission. So that's something you're really going to want to consider. Test drive the vehicle, see how you like it or maybe not like it, and make your decision from that point. Still sticking with the powertrain here, I just don't think it's up to snuff, I think, for this class. 190 horsepower out of a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo mated to a CVT. With these MPG numbers, I think Acura and Honda could have done a little bit better here. Now, this engine does have VTEC, so it does kind of kick into a little bit of a gear sense in that when you kind of get higher in the rev range there. And winding it out, it does get powered down to the ground pretty well. You just do have to really rev out this engine. Now, sport mode 100% makes a big difference in terms of this powertrain's responsiveness. It really does enable you to feel a little bit more quicker than the other modes, but you do have that pumped in engine sound you can hearing right there. But it doesn't really shift because it's a CVT unless you're really stepping on it. Now, we do have these nice metal paddle shifters here to control our continuously variable transmission. But as you can see, not much really happens there. It's pretty quick in terms of its responsiveness, but I wouldn't really call it a dynamic experience with these paddles. I like that they're metal, but I haven't really found myself using them much over the course of this week, but I wouldn't call it slow at all. It's just not the quickest, and I was expecting a little bit more out of this powertrain for this class of vehicle. But you know, where the ADX really comes into play is all of these features and things you're going to be getting, as well as Acura and Honda's legendary reliability. So you know, if you're really shopping for that in this segment and you're confident in the brands, you've had them for a while, I think this is going to be a really safe choice for you. You're really not going to be missing out on much, especially in terms of features at a fully loaded price of around 45 grand, as we have this particular ADX. You know, it's around, I would say, $1 or $2 cheaper than some of its key competitors similarly optioned from the European segment. So it isn't an incredible value, I would say, in this A-Spec Advance trim. I think the A-Spec trim is a much more better value for your money, but you will be missing out on, you know, this top tier 15 speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system, Google built-in system as well, and a heated steering wheel. On the highway, as you can see, we have the Acura Watch system, which actually works really well. We have our lane keep assist and steering assist, and we can easily turn on our adaptive cruise control right here, and all of those systems work really well together. You can set your and change your following distance pretty easily, and like I said, that works great. You do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but overall, I really don't have any issues with this system. Blind spot works really great. This works perfectly fine, and I really like that, actually. So that's a nice aspect of the ADX. So overall, over the course of this week, I think the car has been pretty nice to us. It's great on a road trip. I just noticed on the highway, it is a little bit louder than expected as well. You know, it definitely is a much quieter vehicle than something like a Honda HR-V that it shares some components and bones with, but I definitely found it to be a little bit louder on the highway than I was expecting. Some interesting reverberations coming from the rear seat area, even with this sunshade closed. I wasn't expecting it. It almost sounded like there was a window open, even though they were all closed. But it's pretty comfortable and smooth, actually. And just under some pavement situations, I feel a little bit more unsettledness than I would like for this class of vehicle. And that's where I find some of the competitors to feel a little bit more taut and just, you know, overall cohesive as a chassis package than this ADX, though it is not too far off from those vehicles whatsoever. Now let's also quickly test out Acura's new Bang & Olufsen audio system in this new ADX here. They do get very loud. Okay, everyone, there's a little quick listen to our audio track here. Now, overall, I think I said this audio system is pretty good. One thing I did note this week, and there are a lot of settings with the system. We have our adaptive cruise control on, so it'd be a little more safe for doing this, but you get this cool little they call it Baosonic tone and surround sound settings here. So you can adjust this based off of more of like sound profiles of like bright, energetic, warm, and relaxed. It actually does work well, so you can really play around with that and adjust it as you like. And you also can adjust the volumes of this center speaker over there, as well as this the roof speakers above your head. I actually lowered down the roof speakers. I had them closer to high before because I felt like my head was vibrating when the volume was up a little bit and we had more of a bass heavy soundtrack on. So that was an interesting thing there, and I'm glad that Acura allows you to lower the speakers independently of the other speakers, because I actually found myself wanting to use that feature this week. Okay guys, enough of me blabbering on, but those are my impressions of the all-new Acura ADX. Like I said, if you're really looking at this vehicle, shoot for the A-Spec trim or the entry-level trim. I think those are really going to be where you're getting the most bang for your buck in this vehicle, unless you can get a really good deal on this A-Spec Advance package. I don't think you need to opt for it. I think you're going to get everything you really want in that mid-tier trim. And overall, thank you guys at Acura for loaning us this vehicle for a weekend review. And as always, stay tuned for more coming on Allcarnews as we sit in traffic and enjoy Acura's adaptive cruise control system. Cheers.